Sure, I'm happy to discuss that. Hollywood and our modern era has really tried to rewrite the history of Norse women in the Viking Age. They have depicted women as being independent, liberated, warriors, leaders, politicians, and women of many different nationalities. It simply isn't true. Norse women in the Viking Age were not liberated. They were not independent. In fact, the men weren't independent. In the Viking Age, people, men and women, families, people who were widowed, they were deeply, deeply interconnected with their clan, their community. It took a community under the rulership, if you will, of a chieftain to survive. So men and women were not really independent, okay? They all lived in communities or tribes or clans, and they took care of each other. Getting back to women, there were not Viking warrior women, not as Hollywood has depicted. Now in 1878, there was a discovery of a 10th century gravesite in Birka, Sweden, in which there was a woman and there was DNA study of her remains in 2017 that did verify it was a Norse woman. So we know it was a woman. She was buried with an arsenal of weapons, 2 horses, symbolism, and objects that would lead one to believe that she was a high-ranking official, whether it was a politician, someone in the military, maybe she was a warrior. I'm not so sure, because that would be such a rare thing to happen. Even if women were not Viking warriors, they still held highly respected, very important positions in Norse society during the Viking Age. One great example is the vulva. This woman was a seer and a magician, and the word vulva means one who carries a staff. She could predict the future. She could work magic, which was called Seiðr or Seiðr, depending upon what part of Scandinavia you're from. It's pronounced a little differently. But there wasn't a chieftain, a warlord, a high-ranking official that did not seek her counsel before any major decisions were made. So a vulva was a high-ranking woman in Norse society. You also have Norse mythology, which includes the Norns, Valkyries, goddesses. Women were indeed respected and seen with importance in all things spiritual, magical, and political. Now, there might be some scholars, maybe some other authors that would disagree with me on the political front. They would say, well, there's no evidence that women voted or that women spoke up. They weren't documented as having any say in political or lawmaking in Norse society during the Viking Age. My argument to that is, however, all of the high-ranking officials always, and this is documented, always consulted the vulva, the seer, the woman magician, who was thought to have spiritual and supernatural influence. They always sought her counsel before any important decisions were made. So does it matter that, you know, Viking warrior women were rare? It doesn't, because women still held a place, whether they were the vulva in society or a goddess.
The blót, I don't know if I'm saying that right.
That's another great example. There is the blót, which is a Norse holiday, a sacrifice festival devoted entirely to female spirits and ancestors. So during blót, you will have offerings being made and sacrifices to both ancestors and the Seiðr, which are the female spirits of the natural world. That's an excellent, excellent example of the fact that even spiritual holidays include paying respect and reverence to female spirits and ancestors.